Well, I guess we should open the meeting anyway, since it's now 25 to, and we got quite a full agenda. So welcome everyone who's here so far to meeting number 72, I think, isn't it? Was it 70? Yeah, 72, unbelievably. Can't believe this group's been running that long. We've got presentations from Robert and from Tony and from Christian tonight. I don't think I need to say anything else about the introduction. Feel free to do put your video on.
I'm waiting for Tony to put his video on.
I have an image. I'm gonna try and show my image.
Hi, Chris.
So I think rather than I haven't had time to do a news roundup. It's just been a bit manic here, and Gary usually does it. And in fact, Gary usually comes someone to do it. He utilizes Penny usually, but Gary unfortunately can't be with us tonight because he's too busy having fun in Dubai, or perhaps he's working. I don't know. So he won't be with us tonight, unfortunately. And then we've got Engage You coming up very shortly, which I think a lot of people are going to be at, actually. Christian, do you know how many people are going off the top of your head?
I think I saw something like 170 people.
That should be pretty
but
good.
Not everyone may be on the public list, so there may be more. We'll see. Could be the biggest conference of the year.
Yeah, I think so.
So on the subject of 2023 FileMaker,
yeah,
is it supposed to connect to Studio directly now? You don't have to use so-called Claris Pro. That was the impression I got.
As I understand it, Claris Pro, they've stepped back from Claris Pro, and moved back to FileMaker Pro. So yes, the answer I believe is yes to your question. Doug was talking about this last time, if I remember rightly.
Yay.
I don't know if that's in place yet, but I certainly think it's on the roadmap if it isn't.
I'm surprised Robert isn't mentioning the deadline that he has today.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Robert's part of the group putting on a conference in Canada, and today is one of their deadlines.
Ah.
Yeah, for speakers applying for the Montreal conference that will take place in next June, so June 2024. There's a fair bit of time till then, but indeed, perhaps if you still want to apply as a speaker, you can go look up the page for the cqdf.ca and file a proposal. And I think we're also looking for sponsors. And yeah, otherwise, mark those dates. June 2024, Montreal will be a nice place to be in.
Okay, I think in that case we may as well, if you're ready, Robert, let's just get into your presentation.
So here we go. So yes, my topic today is about error handling. As the title says, for this file that we have here, that's a FileMaker file. And the file I'll be presenting today is also available for download on my website. So if I just bring over a browser without closing the page I'm trying to point to. So accolade+accolade.com/downloads will lead you to this very page. And the file that we're going to be talking about today is the one for error handling right there on the right-hand side. So yeah, basically, I just want to spend just a couple moments talking about what got me into revisiting my own error handling in my scripting and so on and so on. It stemmed from, I would say, mostly two things. It stemmed from things that I picked up from Carbon, the framework that was developed from Geist Interactive back then, and also from FileMaker introducing in 1961 additional functions that would let us have access to what is the last error location, not just the script name, but also like what is the step name that raised the error and what is the line number in the script. And that was very compelling for me to start and say, hey, I want to have that in my stuff and not have to think twice about how to do this. So I looked at different available patterns, and as I mentioned, coming from the Carbon framework, they've made extensive use of the single pass loop pattern. And so we're going to talk briefly about that. The things I'll be showing in the file can use the single pass loop, but it's not mandatory. If you don't feel like using the single pass loop, there is no obligation for you to do so. It is not a new concept. It's been around for quite some time. And as a matter of fact, I have here a blog post from Solian that dates back to 2012. So a little over 10 years. That does talk about the single pass loop pattern. So basically, if we just spend a little bit of time looking into this together, it's basically saying, okay, well, when we are writing a script, we're going to do something and we want to test if something bad happened. And if so, most likely we need to take action. And what does that translate to? Like, is there going to be an error message shown to the user? Are we going to navigate back to an original layout? All of those things is where we handle that. And if that does not happen, and what we did ran smoothly, then we just carry on to whatever else we do next in our script. Okay, but then that too can somehow fail. And if it fails, it's going to have, again, something that we want to do that is likely to share a great deal of things with what we were doing if the first thing failed. And it keeps going like this. And in that pattern, the error handling gets very lengthy and takes a whole lot of space into your overall script, to a point where when you're trying to read the script, you end up having to decipher, hey, am I looking at what the script is meant to do, or is this just like the noise from all of the error handling? Okay, so the pattern of the single pass loop simply introduce a loop, okay, where just before hitting the end loop, we force the exit. Okay, so hence the name single pass loop. It's never going to iterate inside the loop. But because the loop has this nice exit loop mechanism, we can use that mechanism to say at any point when we're doing things, we want to exit out. Okay, and in this case, we're going to want to exit out if an error is hit at any point into our workflow, and then it throws us at the very end of the script where the error can be handled with this single portion of code. So that is, in a nutshell, the single pass loop, and we're going to be looking at our error handling file. So this file has a few custom functions, and the idea was to keep the number of custom functions as low as possible, just because I'm thinking I've seen some people have their own error handling custom functions or other scheme, and usually it goes something like this. They say, oh yes, I have something custom made that lets me handle errors. It's only 25 custom functions, and that's where they kind of lose me. I'm like, okay, well, I like that you have your own thing, but if I want to bring this into my own solutions, usually I want the footprint to be somewhat light. So that's why in this case I wanted to have as few custom functions as possible and as useful and helpful. So the demo file is really describing those functions right here, and we're going to look at what we have both in terms of scripting and the custom functions themselves. Okay, so the scripts are simply describing two sets of use cases, okay, that we're going to go through together. And we're only going to go through the one for the single pass loop, but they are mirrored in the one where there is no loop being used. And yeah, basically, we're just going to have a look at the custom functions and see how they are being used in each of those scenarios. Okay. So if we go to manage custom functions, we get to our dialog, and in here, there's our first function here that is called error custom. Okay, so that is where pretty much everything is happening. So if we go in here, it's expecting both a code and some text. Okay, and it will do its thing, basically trying to establish, oh, was there already a last error? If so, then we're going to grab the last error location. So those are the new functions that FileMaker gave us in 1961 that will give us the script name, the step name, and the line number where that error happened. And again, that is only available if a last error exists in the first place. If there is no last error, you can't really get a step name and a line number. So, and then we build that JSON, and we keep building it with some other things that we feel like adding in there. Okay, so, and you can comment anything that you're like, okay, this, I don't see a use for it. So at that point, what you decide to have or not to have in there is entirely up to you. Okay. I chose to put in something here where it's a UUID that gets generated on the fly. That is for people who would be logging the error so that they could get back a unique identifier without having to say, oh, it's the error that happened, on that day at that time or whatever. So to be able to get back to this easily. But other than that, I'm not going to really speak much today about error logging, more about error handling. Okay. So yeah, we're just basically getting our information, and if we check for the error code and error text, they get sent. I think early on over here we have the code and the text that we have here. Okay, something else that we have is a variable that is here that if there is content in there when the function runs, it will establish, okay, is this a JSON object or is this text? And it will basically include it in the overall JSON object with the proper type. Okay. And to do that, the functions rely on this function from Kevin Frank. So that's error custom. Okay, we can have a quick look at error last. So error last is very simple. It says we're sending in the last error to error custom with whatever optional text that was given to that function. Okay, nothing else than that. Error custom if we're going to look at what that does in our sample. So I'll get back to that. And also another one that we have is trying to establish if a script result is unavailable. Okay, because as we do perform script, we want to know, do we have a script result, yes or no? So I'll get back to those just so I can start with some of the examples already. And I didn't make any specific mentions, but if anyone has questions or comments as I go, feel free to interrupt and spark a discussion right there and then. So So basically, this first example is something where I'm forcing the script to fail, okay? And I do this by saying go to object name get UUID. Okay, so it's impossible for me to have already on my layout something that matches an object name with that UUID already there. Okay, so then we have the exit loop that's going to throw us at the end, and if we want to handle the error, we can handle the error, and then we exit either with an error or with a result. Okay, so if I just go through this very quickly, okay, we have this here at the top, and we'll discuss closer to the end of the presentation why there is nothing else above that, and that we check if there's already a last error that is present, because if that is the case, I don't want to surf on that last error. I want to really hand back the control to whatever called me as soon as possible. Okay. So from there, I'm just going to say, okay, we are dealing with user abort, tracking what the states they are in. We are emptying our error variable, okay? And then we'd say, go to object, that raises the last error, okay? And I didn't call the function yet, okay? So right now, if I go to my data viewer, we see that $error is not having any information in it, okay? But as soon as I go over that step, okay, then we now have the error JSON, okay? And the function formats it because we end up spending a bit of time in there looking at that stuff. So if you don't want to format it, that's up to you, but just keep in mind that you're likely to have to format it. So the things that we want to see are here. So we've captured the line number, what was the script name, and what was the script step that forced the error. This is the little custom text that we sent in, and the error code would be further up here where we have 116 because that was from the last error. So it ejected us from the loop, okay, and then we can simply say, okay, what is it that we had to deal with to reestablish the proper state for user abort and set error captures. And then if there was something special that we need to do with the error, we could do it here. And otherwise, we simply will be exiting the script out by handing back the error to whatever called us. Okay, so that's our first template. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, we can inject something into our error if we use the variable error context data. Okay, so if we simply run this, okay, and trip over our thing again, we're gonna get to, sorry, not this, but the current tab here, where if we look for the context data, if I just go over here, I have something that tells me, okay, loop counter was 0, and we have something for special, and it says, just in case I need something more. So that happens to be an exact match with what I wrote over here. So if you have some, I'm going to say fancy data, you can package it into JSON, and it will get wrapped into the error. Okay, some people will prefer to have a different signature where maybe there is an extra argument to the custom function call. Some people will say, okay, well, I want to have a function that will let me extend the JSON error to add whatever I want to it after the fact. So there's many options. You can do it however you may like, but sometimes it can be helpful to be able to add things that are beyond just the text that you would use for the error itself. Okay. So, and again, we get out and there's not much of a surprise here. And if we had sent something that is just a string and not JSON, again, the script would do its thing and the function would also do its thing. And we would end up having that as part of our JSON. But in this case, for data, we no longer have a JSON object. We simply have the text string. So if that's what you feel like using more in this case, okay. So you have options for whatever you may feel like using more or being a best more suitable for what you want to use. So the next example is something where we may want to have an error, but it's an error that that we want to force not based on an actual last error. It's an error that we want to force based on perhaps business logic or user flow. Okay, so if I come in here and we have something where we are prompting the user, say, okay, do we want to continue or cancel? Okay, if I say cancel, then I can trap this and say, okay, well, there is no error that happened here. Okay, my show custom didn't throw back an error, but I want to know that the user canceled, and I want to handle that in a way that raises an error. Okay, so right now we're before the function call, so $error is empty. Okay, but as soon as we do this, we now have an error. Okay, and we see that error code is 1. I chose 1 because for the normal steps that you can cancel when the user cancels, 1 is the error code that that is returned, but you can choose to use whatever you see fit. So, and the one notable distinction is that in this case, for location, okay, we do have a script name because the custom function falls back on get current script to output something, but we do not have the location for the line number and the step name that matches that. Okay. So that's an example where we can still like get out of our single pass loop and handle that that error, even if we didn't bump into any script step that threw us an actual native last error. Okay. So here we have error custom if. Okay, and we have 3 versions of it. So I'll go over that briefly. Basically, we're saying, okay, we can have a similar pattern, okay, where we give a message, do we want to continue or cancel? But instead of having a whole block, okay, that says, okay, if last error, last message choice was different than 1, we want to exit loop if. You know, I'd like to be able to do that in a single instruction. So we can say, okay, just let's have our exit loop if right there, and then send in error custom, okay, where the error number itself is going to be 1 only if the last message choice was different than 1, and then we send in user cancellation. If that's not the case, it's going to send in 0. The function is still going to be called, but with 0, it's not going to be meant to be an error. Okay, and that is my segue to say we also have the isError function. So that's something we didn't look into when we looked at our custom functions, but basically, custom function for isError is simply expecting a payload that matches the $error JSON. So if that's the case, it's going to look for what we have into its error code. And if not, it's going to say, well, is it empty? If it's empty, then we're not going to consider that an error. But if it happens to be a number, we're going to consider that an error code and apply things as if it was a normal error code. So 0 would not be an error, but any other number would be an error. Okay. So over here, it's just when I'm looking at this line, to me, it feels a bit too busy for it to be easy to read. Okay. So there are other, like I said, other options, other variants. So someone could say, okay, we're going to exit loop if, and then if get last message choice is 1 or is different than 1, then I'm going to make my custom function call. Okay. And again, to me, I don't like that a whole lot. So I ended up opting for one more custom function that I'm throwing in the mix. So if you don't like to have too many custom functions, you don't need to use this one. But this one is there for people to use if they so choose. So exit loop if, error custom if, and that expects 3 things. One would be the test, and then the error code if the test is true, and then the error message also if the test is true. Okay, so if we bring our custom functions just so we can go and have a look at this error custom if, okay, is pretty simple. We say we have our test, okay, and based on that test, if it's true, then we're going to call error custom for the rest of the things we were provided. If not, we're just going to output false, okay, so that it can be used as a Boolean in our tests, you know. And the error custom itself can be used as a Boolean in our test because the function, even though the function raises the dollar variable, what it returns back, sorry for getting in and out of the dialogue here, but even if it raises that JSON, what it returns back is really just the error code portion of the whole thing. Okay, so that means you can use that function just like you are using last error. Okay. So any questions or comments up to now? As I said, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I'll keep going.
It's very interesting, Robert. It's very impressive. I'll save comments for the end and questions for the end for the moment, but it's looking good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So this use case is one where I wanted to be able to have the business logic error, like I said, or the user flow error, but I still wanted to have in my error a line number and a script step. Although in this case, it's not going to be the actual script step that threw the error, but it's going to be close enough. At least that's what it's the closest as to what I can achieve. You know, so if we have something like this here, we can say, okay, same thing. Is our user saying that he canceled? Okay, and if so, then I will put in here something that I know will be throwing a last error. Okay, so I'll do something like this, and then I'll call error custom. Okay, while having a last error available to me. Okay, so what this does in the resulting error JSON is it gives us like the error code that I sent, okay, not the 116 that we saw as the last error, okay, but then this gets merged with the line number 15, custom error forcing line number is my script name, and the step name is go to object. Okay, so at least I have something where, especially with the line number, I can get back to my script and be like, okay, where is it that something happened? Okay, line 15. So I know it's because we were in this part of the flow, and have a better understanding of why I'm here, as opposed to having something very similar, getting, my thing that says user cancellation, but maybe there's other parts of my script that have a similar payload, and then I end up not really knowing which is the dialogue that was canceled or something like that. Okay, so something I would say is 116 is an error. You can look at what other steps you may use in this kind of a hacky way to force FileMaker to give you an error code with a line number and things like that. One that seemed to be somewhat exclusive was if I was to say set field by name, okay, and that my target field was division by 0, okay, that happens to give an error code that I'm not going to run through the whole thing. I'm just going to come in here and set last error 15, can't divide by 0. So, I mean, go to object with a missing object, I have to say it's likely to happen in my code that natively I'm going to run into those errors. Whereas division by 0 is fairly more rare, if ever. So you can scan the system for what are likely steps that you may want to use or not use to, like I say, hack the system into thinking that it should give you a line number. And maybe you don't want to use this at all. So if so, that doesn't apply to you. I'm just giving you a couple options, and from there, you can go on your own and check what works for you, basically. So then we come in here and we have something where we have a subscript, and we're talking about the possible errors that would happen, so if the subscript happens to have been deleted, what would happen next, and so on and so on. So this is something where, again, as we are doing a call to perform script, there's always going to be an exit loop right after it. And the exit loop is always going to have something that says, is the script result unavailable? And if so, it kicks us out, okay? So if we do a quick run of this, don't know by heart what the error number is going to be, but yeah, 104. And then boom, we're here. And if I go have a look at my error code again, we see 104, and then it's the perform script on line 13 that failed me. Okay, so you could get something like this if you're calling something from another file and that file isn't available, or if the script truly has been deleted, or perhaps some other situations. So, so yeah, just keeping in mind that testing after you're calling a script can be a good thing. So we have a few more things here. So we're checking here to say, okay, is the return invalid JSON? So I have a script here that quite literally gives me something that is just not JSON at all. Okay, so the script return, the custom function expects it to be valid JSON in order for it not to be an error, short of it being an actual error code or something like that. So if we go back to our script there, it's going to say that, hey, we were expecting something else, and because what we get back is not valid JSON, it's going to again kick us out. If we look at a script that returns an error, okay, so if I go in here and I build, an error variable that gives me this, and and say, okay, I want to hand that out to who is calling me, then we're going to also get ejected from the loop, so I can go through this, say, okay, we're going to have that. We're going to have the error context data packaged in the error. And once we're here, we say, okay, is script result available or not available? And it kicks us out again. Okay. And in doing so, it preserves the error from the script that was run. Okay. So if I go into my data viewer, I now have my error code that was the -2. Okay. And we have the data for will this stick, and we have the text for this is yet another error. Okay. So the custom function is built that way. If we go through the custom functions for script result is unavailable, and we look at what it's going to do. So it's going to first check, okay, was there a last error? Do we have a result from the script result, and is that valid JSON? Yes or no? And then try to establish what error we should have based on that, and then put that into the error variable. So it's always going to raise an error variable, and it's also always going to raise a $result variable. Okay. And what it outputs is simply a Boolean trying to figure out, did we have a valid result, or did we have something that is not a valid result, and we should error out. Okay. So it does all those things, and we're not forced or condemned to always get kicked out. Right here, I'm using it in an exit loop if, but I could very well say, okay, if my script result is unavailable, then I'm going to check for specific error codes, and then say, okay, well, let's load the error code into an error variable, and then say, okay, if my code was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I want to do this. If not, I want to do this other thing, and else in all of the cases, let's do this. And then you exit the loop, just like what you would have done if none of this was there, and you just had said, okay, exit loop if at the top. Okay. So, and the last two items we have on this list here. So is about function calls. Okay, so over here we have a function called isSquare. Okay, so it's being sent a number, and we're just trying to figure out, is that a square number, yes or no? Okay, so pretty basic, pretty easy. So if I just go and have a look at my custom function for isSquare, okay, we're just doing some basic math. Okay, and I honestly don't really care, am I right or wrong about this? It's just about the example. Okay, but if the function establishes that the number it was sent is not a square number, okay, then we output false, but we're also calling the error custom. Okay, but we're stripping away its result, because it would give us the actual error number. It would give us -2, and we don't want that to be part of what we're outputting here. So, but by calling the function within this isSquare function, our functions can give us back errors. Okay, so applied into our script, that means I can run this script, okay, and say error is null. We're taking 9 and we're asking, okay, is my number is square? Okay, and then we say exit loop if is error. Okay, so right now we can look, we don't have $error. Okay, so we keep going because there was no error. Okay, now I'm sending in 7. I'm sending that to the same function. Okay, and we see that this raised a $error variable. Okay, with my code still being -2. Okay, and my text telling me not a square. Okay, the rest comes along for the ride. I was calling this within a script, so I get the function returns error and all of those things. Okay, but all in all, now if I say exit loop if is error for my variable, we're not going to reach that point where we're being thrown out of the single pass loop, and we reach the further point where again we're going to say, okay, how do we exit out of here? Do we handle the error and then exit out, handing back the error to whatever called us? Okay, and a specific application of this when the function happens to be returning a Boolean value, okay, is that we can do something like this. We can then say, I'm going to not even have, you know, a first thing where I call the value and then say exit loop if is error. I can simply then say, okay, well, exit loop if not is square my number, because then again, the function itself is returning a Boolean, so I can rely on that to exit. And because if it is an error, or if it provokes an error by the time I'm reaching the end of my single pass loop, $error will have been raised, you know. So it gives us the same features as we had before without the extra step of first calling the function and then exiting if error. Okay, but that can only happen if the function is indeed outputting a Boolean. If you have a function that is doing something like text concatenations, then you won't be able to use it in a test like this here. Okay, so again, not a square. We say there is nothing here, but as soon as I hit this step, we get the $error that is showing again with the code -2. So that gives us a good deal of different patterns that we can use. And in all of those patterns, as you saw, the first thing I'm doing is always to say, let's not have anything above the single pass loop, and let's first do a test to know if there was a last error. And this is happening because, you know, some scripting can be a bit like pickpockets. You know, they can rob us from an error that we want to hold on to. And I want to avoid something like that. So the file also has a demo for this. So we're going to run through this, okay, with the bad trigger example, and then we're going to see the good trigger example after that. Okay, so I'm just going to get in here, and you'll see pretty easily what I'm talking about by running the debugger. So over here, we have a script that is called do not find plus trigger. Okay, so basically, I'm doing this find. Okay, and again here, I purposefully want something that is not going to give me any records back as the result of my my found set. Okay, so I've put in here, let's look for records where the primary key is like get UUID. And again, here it's impossible that ahead of time I would have a record that already has that that key in my thing. But for your own purposes, maybe you have a script, you know, and you're looking for records, and it so happens that none of your records match the criteria, and you want to have something just like this. You know, you want to say, okay, I'm performing my find, I have a script, I will be trapping for that error. You know, if there is no found record or something like that, I want to notify the user. Okay, and this script here is written in such a way, you know, that we're doing our thing, we perform find, and then we check, was there an error? So we expect that if there is an error, our user is going to see this dialog. Okay, so as I go through this, we do perform find, and we see error 401. Okay, so that is awesome. But what is less awesome is now we've switched script because we so happen to have a trigger on mode enter. Okay, and this here is to sort records. You know how we often see things where, okay, we say, well, when we're going to be done with our find, you know, we want to show the records that will already be sorted. So let's have a trigger that will handle that. So we don't have to code this after each of our finds or something like that. So here, as I go through this, you know, our pickpocket of a script is going to rob us from the last error. Okay, so as soon as I step on my first step, there is no more a last error. Okay, and it's attempting to sort records that are not even there, and then it exits out. And by the time I'm back here, if I try to do, you know, if error last, there's nothing there. And it's not because this is a custom function. Even if you had, like, if the last error has been wiped away by the trigger script. Okay, so over here, we're in a bad shape. Okay, we have something where we were meaning to handle the error, but the error was stripped away from under our feet. Okay, so that's bad. So what would be better, okay, is if we look at our good example. And in this example, we have the exact same script. The only thing that is different is the trigger. Okay, so I'm performing the find. We have the last error. We have this script here. The script is meaning to sort records. Okay, but before it does that, it first checks, do we have a last error? Okay, and so just by hitting this, I do have my last error. Okay, if I go look at $error, we have something. Okay, and you can note that in terms of line number of script name, the line number and script name are not from this script. They are from the originating script. Okay, the script that is do not find plus trigger, and the script name, I'm sorry, the step name being perform find. Okay, which we're not going to find this over here because this is not where the error happened. The error happened one level up in our call stack in the script. Okay, so we get everything the way we want. And so this we are handing back over to our calling script so that now we do this and we can say, okay, we know that an error happened, and then show the custom dialog that we want to show. And if we go in here and have a look at our $error, again, the code says 401 because that's our last error, and line number 5, do not find, perform find, all of that is preserved. Okay, so that's just the way we want it to be, and we're happy about that. So this way, our script is not going to come and rob us from our last error that we need to hold on to be able to error trap or to perform our error handling. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, if there are questions or comments about the whole thing, like I said, the file is available for download on my website. And if you are doing error handling, if you are not doing error handling, if there are things that you want to discuss, I would very much like to broaden the discussion on that topic, because to me it's all about the price of performing the error handling in the first place. Basically, the single pass loop is making that price less than if that pattern was not involved. But still, as I'm trying to point to in the presentation, if we can get something where the set of lines that we have right after our instructions are trimmed down as much as possible, then it makes the script lighter, it's easier to read, and it's not as costly to make a call to enforce on the error handling. So that sometimes we're not going to be, too lazy about it to say, hey, I should be error trapping, but it would cost me too much, so I'm not going to do that, and then I'll let the script carry on. So we want to avoid those type of situations. So while I'm still sharing the screen, if people have questions that are specific to the file itself, they can address any of that. And other than that, I'd be stopping the screen share. I can look at the chat to see if there are messages there.
Yeah, that's great, Robert. Thank you. Sorry, something's happening. That's really thought-provoking and interesting, because yes, I know I've been guilty of certainly being a bit lazy about error trapping sometimes, because it does add overhead. I do use the single pass loop. I'm a great fan of the single pass loop generally. Yeah, unfortunately, I had to be slightly distracted when that was happening, so I need to run through your file and have a good look at it.
Yeah, and I think we're all like guilty of that to a degree, not doing error handling as much as we should. But this is just my own humble attempt, to say, well, I think there is some value in what is packaged in here, and so if anyone wants to use that, feel free to do so and to run with it and customize it to your own liking.
Yeah, it's great. It's really useful.
Well, there was something about Claris introducing the new functions, that would give the line number specifically, because before it was to some extent possible to get those line numbers. I mean, you could turn on some error logging that would write logs, like physical logs, to your device, and try to say, okay, we're going to import that and do all of those things. But once they started giving us functions, that we can call into our solutions right there and then, that made it much easier. So that really was the trigger. It made that to do, in terms of kind of a glaring point on my schedule, saying, okay, well, now there's this opportunity. I need to revisit what I've been doing in the past and try to package this in a way where it'll be, easier for me than what it's been in the past. And again, I did learn a whole lot from the patterns I saw elsewhere, like I said, especially into the Carbon framework. And from there, I just tried to tune and say, okay, well, here's what I like, here is what I like a little less, and yeah, try to design this in a way where it would work out for me, but also, like I said, not be asking people to package in their apps too many custom functions, because for everything you introduce, there's this cognitive load. You need to learn about it, to know what it's doing, and so on and so on. So also, making a demo file where the use cases are presented one by one in a trimmed down version. The scripts are doing nothing else. It's not trying to understand how to send a mail or all the different ways that the send mail step can fail. It's just trying to say, okay, well, put in whatever beady part you have that does your thing, but it's likely to happen in one of those cases. Either you're going to have a native function erroring out, either you're going to have some business logic that you want to fork out based on this, or you're going to call an actual function, that you've deployed as a custom function, and instead of having it output as a string some type of error thing that you then have to read, you'd want to say, well, I wanted to output nothing, but to be able to gather that error where the rest of my error things are all happening,
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah, no, it's good to have it now. I mean, I think that's a really classic use of custom functions, is to minimize your otherwise code writing, because otherwise you'd have to put that in every time, which would be a nightmare, obviously. But no, I mean, my error handling tends to err towards the guilty of not putting enough information that I retrieve when retrieving the error, and partly from the fact that Claris has now given us some nice functions, and you found a nice way of packaging that up. I think I'll be definitely looking at that.
Yeah, and I keep hoping that they will bonify the existing features. Someday perhaps we'll even be able to have functions that will give us the current script line number, regardless of is there an error, yes or no, so that then we could inject that into a function like this. But short of it, we have to do with what we're given, and as I said, it could be hacky to introduce something that we know is going to fail, but it gives me what I want, So I'll follow that path for now.
That's what you've done there is really, really nice, and it's kind of a more modern version of what I used to do for error capture. So what I did was I wrote a custom function that would just simply use execute SQL to create a new record in a table. And that table just basically had a single field for every get function there was in FileMaker. So when you create, because FileMaker only has one context, if you created the record in SQL, you could basically know which layout you're on, what's the found count, what's the script name, all that kind of stuff you're capturing in JSON.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked really, really well. But what you'd have to do is explicitly log this, basically, because you're capturing errors and wrapping it inside the single pass loop.
Correct.
You're capturing that at the point. And I know I said to you privately that I didn't want to say this publicly, but now Douglas is listening, I will say, I think this is kind of in response to it's almost like a misfeature in terms of how FileMaker returns the last error when script triggers are involved. That because the last error is what's being evaluated at that point in time. When script triggers are involved, you don't exactly know what that is.
Yeah, you would kind of expect the last error to be restored or something like that, and it is not. So anything that alters it, in whatever gets triggered, you've now lost what you really had in hand. Those two steps are next to each other. It's just unbeknownst to you. There's this other script that says, "Hey, I have to do my thing here," and it so happens that by doing its thing, it wipes away the very thing you need to make sure that your flow is handled the right way. So in and you're right. I pointed into the presentation that this was really about handling the errors and not about logging them, because that's in
Yes.
itself is
Mm.
quite a topic. But when you said you were using a custom function with a SQL call, so that would then rely on a plugin, right? Because
Yes.
creating,
Yeah, I was using I first wrote this, it was like, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago. I used base elements.
I see.
But the thing is, I didn't have any clients at the time. I was an in-house developer or software architect at this company. So we had one solution totally under my control.
Yes.
And basically I just talked to the IT team and we knew that base elements would be installed everywhere. So
Excellent.
so we're able to control that.
Yes. Yes. Sweet. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing, just Robert, just given I know where you live, just I'm wearing my Côte Nord t-shirt from my holiday in Canada this summer.
How nice.
My brother lives just outside Sept-Îles, so
Okay.
so I spent some time there.
Good.
Great. Well, that was fascinating. Certainly to me. And thank you, Ian, for your comments at the end there. Very interesting too. And thanks, Doug, for prompting them from Ian by being there.
My pleasure.
Unless
Doug, you can complain to me in Antwerp about me.
Unless anyone's got anything else they want to add here, I think we're pretty much on schedule for moving on to Tony's presentation. Thank you very much, Robert. Excellent stuff. Are you ready, Tony?
Yes, I am. And I think in honor of Robert's presentation, I'm going to show some code. I've removed all error trapping from my code. I think I left one thing in. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen here, and I will ask everybody to tell me if it looks okay. Hold on, let me just make sure I haven't got anything. I think I'm clean here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I did adjust my window size.
Yeah.
That look okay?
To me, but I've got quite a big screen, but it looks good.
Okay, good.
Everyone else.
Okay, so sorry about that. So I'm going to show some good code and some bad code, and I thought to myself, where am I going to get some good code and some bad code? And I thought, hey, I got some of each. And I have first off, you might notice that this is not FileMaker on the screen. That's not FileMaker. That's actually AppleScript, but we're going to use some AppleScript to do something in FileMaker, something that I cooked up over the weekend. But I said, well, who am I going to find to show some code? And I said, I'll do it. All right. Before we do that, let me just show you this AppleScript. And I've got a bunch of computers that I code FileMaker on, different client base. Fortunately, everybody's moving forward. A lot of progress this year. I'm demoing off a particular machine that has some tools, some of them proprietary, and some of them this Script Debugger, which is a terrific app. I think it's still $99. Used to be $199, so it's terrific value. So actually, I'll give you the why do I care first. There was a very interesting presentation given by Vince Manano at Dig FM. And if you were so unfortunate as to not be there, I'm going to give you a recap here. So Vince's presentation was he talked about the FileMaker force field. So now I'm in FileMaker, by the way. So we have a little file, TWDI UX demo, and its purpose is just to kind of put some visual concepts out there. And these are some visual concepts that we were using 10 years ago. And I haven't touched it because we moved a lot of code into our tools. I haven't touched it much, and I purposely held back from touching it so that I could refactor it in real time for everybody here. So we make changes. over the years, hopefully positive, smarter decisions. So 10 years ago, I thought it was reasonably clever to, fair warning, I'm going to jump around a lot. Very unstructured. I don't have a script because that would take time to put together. But hopefully, even if I jump around, I'll produce some value for y'all. So here's a field name first, excuse me, name full. So we're name spacing because we've got, name first, name last, name middle. And this is name full, which, as you can see, is a concatenation. Now it says indexed, and in our lexicon, another word for index is stored. So notice, if you'd be so kind, that this field label, which is a text string, is on the layout NAME, camel case FULL underscore CT. So I'm going to rename it with an S because it's something that we added to our naming convention is using the suffix. We are in the suffix camp, not the prefix. You could use prefix if you want, but suffix is correct. The S means stored because it could be unstored, or it could be G, global S unstored. So when I click change, as Vince pointed out, because this text label is proximate to the field, and this was the demo Dig FM recording, it's already dropped, you can go look. If this label is within that field, or close rather, force field, it will rename as it just did. And now I'm going to show you something kind of cool. I'm going to show you, like I said, some good code and bad code. So I'm going to show you something cool, and it's all downhill after that. So here comes the cool part. Get ready. It's the Apple script. So there's a lot of tools out there that you can use to make buttons that run Apple script. This is one that we have. But basically, I'm clicking a button, and it's going to run an Apple script. And the Apple script is going to take advantage of a feature that not everybody knows about. Actually, I'll demo it over here. I'm going to duplicate this, option drag. Zoom does not want me to option drag. I'm going to duplicate. So the feature is that if I type TYPE, it replaces. So over the weekend, I thought to myself, by the way, these are tools, quite a lot. Hold on one second. Put the tools away. This is an Apple script that puts the tools away. And if it clean up the room at the same time, that'd be cool. Okay, so I tested this before. I hope it works. So I'm just going to click, and I'm going to take advantage of the idea that if I type, it will replace. So my goal is going to be to remove the suffix and to take the name full camel case and turn it into name full. Not a perfect demo because name full is a little bit awkward. If it was flip the name around full name, that would be even better. But it's just a demo. It would work for like org name, but this is what I tested on because I wanted to remove the suffix. So I got a little visual icon, XS, which to me means remove, X for remove, and S for suffix. So wish me luck as we click this button. There we go. Hey, what do you know, it worked. Okay, so it removed the suffix, and it took the camel case and made it human readable space. So that's, if you ever put a field on a layout and you have a suffix of underscore CT, you might have a customer say, well, what is that? And they might prefer without the suffix. It would be more user-friendly for sure. The other benefit is that I have broken the link. And that may be a good thing or bad thing. It's a good feature, and yet you should use it carefully. So broke the link, and I'm just gonna show you that it broke the link with AAA. And so it's tied, the label, just waiting for it to rename. So I broke the link. And so there could be advantages to this. It's, for instance, if you were to add suffixes to field names like underscore N to disambiguate whether something is a number field or unstored number field, popular use case, you would the underscore n would be useful if you're under the hood, if you're a programmer looking. And that's the point of the suffix. It's not for the user, it's for the programmer to know that, hey, that's a calculated text field, or that's stored, or that's unstored. That's all useful information if you're looking at a field in the script space or the layout space. But anyway, so that's that. So this sample script, anybody wants a copy, send me an email, Tony, Tony underscore, sorry about that, white, like the color or lack thereof, at twdesigns.com. Once again, Tony underscore white at twdesigns with an s.com. And I'll send you a copy. Or if you want to wait, I'll probably post it somewhere. Anyway, so that's a pretty cool little Apple script, in my opinion, and useful. Oh, and by the way, I am a fast-talking New Yorker. I'm going to try and talk a little bit slow. If anybody wants to make a comment or question in line, that's fine. And you could, I won't always have my eyes glued to the chat, but if, you know, Jules, if you see something, feel free to stop me in line. Let's see, my other
keep an eye on it.
Okay, yeah. Or, you know, and it'll, you know, I'll pause for air from time to time. The, like I said, very unstructured. Everything I say is my opinion. Otherwise, why would I say it? And could be right, could be wrong. And sometimes I'm not sure, you know, what the heck. You know, it's hopefully some thought-provoking things. Some of these things are subject to debate, healthy debate, hopefully. All right, and like I said, jump around. So where are we going to jump next? We're going to jump to, what's our favorite place to look at first is the relationship graph. So a demo file, not a full build solution. Okay, so this is the epicenter of the demo. We wanted to have at least two tables talking to each other. Otherwise, we couldn't demo a portal. So here we go. Contact is one. So we're going to use a feature that FileMaker has. I'm going to hit Command U, which is a keyboard shortcut that selects all table occurrences with the same, let's see if I can use the correct term, the same source table. Table, otherwise known as table occurrence in this particular case. And the source table, oh gosh, I guess that's a table occurrence sitting on top of a base table, something like that. Or maybe that's a base table, one or the other. Anyway, that's green. So you can kind of see that's that, contact. Let's do one more. Command U. And now what? Let's RGB, let's try blue. And anyway, so that is now slightly more clear. Now it's a trivial example with two, but that's a cool feature. As a matter of fact, so cool, such a cool feature that we made it our first fun FileMaker fact. What is a fun FileMaker fact, you're thinking? We help organize the New York FileMaker Pro user group, which meets from time to time. We're kind of working out logistics here in New York City. So that was a fun FileMaker fact. We send them out with the, what's that thing called? The MailChimp integration that we do. We also did a presentation for DigFM. It's on my website, twdesigns.com. It's at the top. You can see presentation number 2. 24 fun FileMaker facts, and that's one of them. One more thing while we're in the relationship graph, there's 3 different settings. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here's an opinion. This is the correct setting. This is too little. This is too much. This is just right. That's an opinion. Okay, so that is, let's see, started at, okay, 13 minutes, good. Here's something we learned over the years. We had a project where somebody wanted, what did they want? They wanted multilingual. So we did it. This solution is not multilingual. But what we discovered is if you're going to do a multilingual, you want the buttons text below excuse me, below the icon, because different languages have words of different length, which in hindsight is pretty obvious. So this is the button bar that we had 10 years ago. And by the way, you know, we do different UIs depending on what different people want. And but we also have like a default user interface. We try to make changes to the user interface evolutionary versus revolutionary, for obvious reasons. So here, I brought up a different file. This is obviously the phone number file. These are, by the way, oh, I shouldn't show this. These are Elon Musk's home phone numbers. Actually, this is 911, but only in an emergency, which, by the way, in the United States is the emergency number. I don't know if you know that. Maybe you have the same. 411 is information in the US. Those are not real numbers, by the way. The let's see, what do we have here? This is a fun FileMaker fact. This different way of doing the windowing. Fit was an idea. This is a better idea. What else we got? New. Help system, that's a longer story. Help ticket system, very good. This is relatively new. This is just the back forward button. After great amount of thought, decided that they visually fit well near the show all and omit. They're sort of conceptually similar. Let's see what else we have. Oh, and then over here, this is the enter the find mode, step by step. I don't know if I've ever presented that anywhere. It'd be a good present. I got to focus. This is, by the way, a real system, so I have to be a little bit careful of what I do because I don't want to show people's phone numbers except for Elon's. But here's a code refactoring coming up, and I can do it one of two ways. I can give you the answer, or I can make it a puzzle. Here is one way to do it on the left, and there's a different way to do it on the right. And you could make a case for either one. So I'm going to go script debugger. And actually, before we do that, let's just toggle. So 911, let's make believe that that's his home number. So that's a toggle. Okay. Anyway, toggle, because it could be home and office, because the guy works a lot, from what I've heard. And mobile, he's like, doesn't leave his house. Fax number, remember those? The, okay, so that's a toggle. How does it work? Let's look at the code. Set phone number is, and then * is wildcard. And here's a code. Here is a script. Okay, so not the worst script I've ever written. Couple things here. Here's a little controversy. Line 5. Can you all see this okay? Pretty good. Sufficient zoom. I'll take that as a yes. And I saw a nod. I said Joel's nod. Sorry, by the way,
Yeah,
I don't
good.
have a camera, unfortunately. Oh, it's kind of security anyhow. But and my photo disappeared from the Zoom for some reason. And it was me from like 20 years ago. I like that photo. Anyway, so if 0, that's kind of a throwaway because then this pattern is the same as that. You know, it's just I like the consistency. So for one line, I'll throw it away. More recently, I will get rid of the line because if I'm throwing it away, why am I going to burn a comment? That takes space. And param, more recently, I'll put that there because kind of glue line 4 to line 6. Not a big deal, works either way. I'm doing a param. I could repeat get script parameter. I don't know if there's a performance difference. A little bit more readable. I use param. Some people do $P. I like to have a little bit more. You know, I'm willing to burn an extra 4 characters for the readability. And then is find mode just because. So I mean that's a toggle. If it's a number field with a value of 1, and we're using is direct. Used to be flag, but that's English. Is direct. Okay, and then 1 branch for every single one. But could we do it with fewer lines? All right, I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'll show you the alternative way, which is a theme of object names. Oh, and by the way, I set this up on just exactly this one. So it toggles, right? So it works the same. As a matter of fact, same field. You can see click, click, toggles. Let's see how long this script is. It's going to be shorter, by the way. Here's a prediction. Why, that is a heck of a lot shorter. Okay, so this is thematic to what I call a black box script, because on the left, if I was going to add another field on the left, like I don't know, another phone type, like mind reading as a phone type, that would be a good one. Then I would I'd have to add a branch, and I'd have to put a parameter on the field. So I'd have to touch scripts and layout objects. So I'd be working in two different zones. Whereas here, see if I can do this in real time. I'm going to go just to the layout mode. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. Because the way this works, oh, this is a little tricky. Because I'm going to dupe this. Why is it tricky? Because it's a field, which I'm going to ungroup. And I know that, there's nice features that came on board that you click it twice and it does good things. So now that I have ungrouped it, I took the script off, the script we've just seen. It's got and I duped it, so it appended copy because object names are unique to a layout. So here's an object name, here's a convention, F for field, pretty easy to figure that one out. Is home, that's the name of the field. 2 hyphens, just because it's a homage to the hat tip to the 2 colons in a row, and phone number. So we actually flip it around. We do the field and then the table occurrence, because table occurrences can be long, and we read from left to right. So it would be relatively straightforward. It's in any case straightforward. Yeah, actually, that's all I have to do is the object name. I don't even have to touch the button because I'm not touching the button. So one thing, don't touch the script, hence the name black box script. And now this is, I think Robert will get the kick out of that if he's, there you are. Val object name is on layout. So I got a bad code, good code example coming up for you. I'm going to start with bad code. Bad code. Okay, so object name gets script parameter. I could even call it parameter, but object name is good because I'm going to pass it into this script. And here's a script. Blame. I think I wrote this, and it is a bad implementation. Oh wait, actually, this is a good implementation. Okay, all right. The bad implementation is using substitute, because substitute is case sensitive and object names are not case sensitive. So long story short, don't do that. But anyway, filtered values is a good way. And what are we doing? We're doing object name, layout object, this, that. Here's a refactor. Yes, sir.
If I just ask
Yeah, please.
Or make a point here. Years ago when I read Martin Fowler's book on refactoring.
Yep.
Which is really, really good, even though it's mostly about Java, but the ideas are brilliant.
Yep.
But
I think actually I read it.
One of the
probably didn't understand it, but I read it.
That's similar to me. But what you've done there, the saying you're setting a variable with a value of get script parameter.
Yeah.
And I think one of his points was that doing that, you're introducing a potential bug, because you're introducing you could potentially misspell the variable name. Whereas where you're referring to that, you could just call get script parameter, and it's going to give you the value with kind of the syntax checking built into the language.
Sure.
So it's just sort of a.
I agree. Let me both agree and disagree.
I I quite understand why you would both agree and disagree, but I just thought I'd mention it.
No, it's a good one. It's, and kind of the purpose of presenting, or one of the purposes of my presenting, is to have healthy conversations. So I agree, because it does introduce the possibility, between lines, many a slip between the cup and the lip. It does introduce the possibility of what you just said. It also kind of, takes two lines to do what could be done in one line. So that all said, and I think this is something that's interesting debate that we should perhaps be having, is by declaring something before sending it, and I've got an example coming up, I'll make sure I hit it. By declaring something before sending it, like declaring a dictionary or JSON object prior to plugging it into a perform script, it gives you the possibility of exposing the value to the script debugger. Like
Yes.
I'll use it.
Actually,
Okay, there
that's
you
a
go.
great point.
So
Yes.
yeah, before you, the perform script is a good example, so I'll stick with that. I think there's other times when it's relevant. It's before you pass it into a script, you're like, let me get a good look at that. But so that's why it's a horse race. But
Well,
anyway,
yeah,
that's a good point. I appreciate you sharing it.
Can I throw my hat in here, in the ring here?
Please.
If you can face with going into, I do this with Boolean fields, if you can face going into the field, you can then get the layout object name directly from being within the field.
Oh,
and set it to its opposite.
I think actually, let me go back to the script that I wrote, because I think, great minds think alike. I think that's what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
So I went down the make sure the object, which is, by the way, the name for that is fail early, I guess. I have a whole stack of subroutines. Hold on, I'm just looking. I just happened to glance at chat. 911. Okay. Look at that. 911 is routed to 999. That's good to know. Okay, that's very very neighborly of you. Hold on one second. I'm just having a little conversation with Zoom. Subroutines. The make sure the object exists on the layout is a popular one. There's also make sure you're in the browse mode, make sure you've got a found out greater than 0, and commit the record to make sure you don't have any kind of uncommitted issues, like, validate this and that. Just a whole stack of things to do before you just to fail at the top of the script before you embark on a journey that might result in failure. So object name, go to object. So yeah, Jules, that's the go to the field, great minds. Perform find, that's quite sufficient. Here, because it's so simple, I just say, window mode 1 equals find mode. It'd be a custom function, less portable if I'm just doing it vanilla. Throw in a comment just for good luck. And then if get active field equals 1, that, Jules, I think that's what you're talking about there. Go into the.
I was actually, there's two things. I was talking about picking up the object name from being within the field because it's now active, and get layout object name. Active layout object name would give you no errors on the object name.
True.
And secondly, with a Boolean field, you can just set the field once you know what it is. Set field by name to not set field by name.
Yeah, that's a good point. Two good points. One, the first thing about get it from the field is true. If the script was not attached to the field, like old school,
Yeah.
and if it was script triggers, like go to the field and I don't know what that's on enter, maybe on object enter or whatever, you could have the script called via script trigger, which, click in the field, the field you're in, and then the script runs script trigger. You could do it that way. I'm a little scared of script triggers. That's just maybe code and style. The other thing that you said, spot on, and I'm actually making a note on that one. It's the toggle with the not.
Yeah.
And that would make my code more sophisticated.
It works even if the field's empty. So if it's empty, it'll set it to 1.
what is the toggle between 1 and empty? Or is that 1 and 0?
Between 1 and 0, but if it's empty in the first place, it'll toggle to 1.
And then when I click it again, is it going to?
It'll go to 0.
Okay. All right. And then there's another one right there. It's like, 1 blank 0, different ways to doing the flags. And boy, this platform's pretty robust here, this FileMaker platform.
It is.
It is indeed. Now I'm slotted for half an hour, so I'm cruising on. So maybe I'll pause here. There's obviously a heck of a lot more to say. But perhaps I possibly going to do something similar at other user group meetings, because I got more things to show. But I'm happy. Thanks for the time. Look forward to the recording, which I might recycle.
Are you going to hang around for the afterwards? Because maybe we could carry on more in the virtual bar afterwards if you're.
I have some obligations.
You have.
What I'd like to. I have to be honest. One of my agendas was to share first and foremost with my friends across the pond, and also to get recorded, because I'm trying, and this is maybe an interesting segue towards Christian, who's up next. I'm trying to. We do have certain code patterns, and I'll show you one more. I'm going to go over 1 or 2 minutes. Hopefully, Christian doesn't get mad. We're organizing our scripts in folders that match what our friends at FileMaker have organized their script steps in. I thought that was a pretty clever idea for readable code. It's like, if you know the platform, we're going to use the same folders to organize scripts. Longer conversations there. I want to do some more stuff recorded, because then I can go to customers. I had a customer said, I want to be able to say to customers, it's like when we build a solution to you, and we're pretty darn fast, we got magical buttons. When we build a solution for you, we want you to understand what we're giving you. I think that's healthy for the community. And so I'm presenting some of the stuff that we do and then record it. So I will, I'll try and take care of what I'm taking care of, leave the Zoom in and come join you guys. But what else I want to say? I think that's about it for now. So thank you once again. And I'll present somewhere else. And hopefully everyone should join every user group, especially Dig FM, the LA group, and the New York group, and a bunch of others in the Midwest, because I'm going to present and get recorded somewhere. All right. Thank you.
That's great, Tony. Thank you very much. That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay. Thanks all. I'm going to stop sharing.
Anyone got anything they want to say about that before we move on to Christian, who's not jumped in? Now's your big chance.
And Christian's here. Let me just check he's still here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll start the ball rolling by stopping the screen share here.
I've been there all the time.
I couldn't see. I had my screen had this like code on it a moment ago.
So let me share the screen.
Well, thank goodness, Christian. We were worried you might have run away and forgotten to come back.
Gone to the country.
So should I start here?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit about the next plugin version. So let's documentation. So the new plugin is coming tomorrow. And it got a couple of new features. And I thought you may be interested to try a few of the new functions with me. So let's just start by, for example, taking an example here for JSON, for queries in JSON. So in JSON, well, you use a lot of JSON probably. And you may know that for XML, we have the queries to use XPath queries in XML. And there's a similar thing for JSON to run queries. So I added a JSON query function. and a search function. And the query function takes some JSON, takes a query, and returns a result. To just start by an example for the query, we have a JSON. We start a query, which is just a $sign. We get back the whole JSON. But if our query, for example, says, here, go to store node, find a book node, pick the one where the author matches Evelyn, and give me back the result, we would basically go within the JSON into the store node, then in the book node, and then it's an array. So it goes through all the entries and finds the matching one, which is this one, and returns it as JSON. So you can find documentation on this, of course, and you can try a few queries with our plugin. And the other function is a search function, which implements JMES parse queries. And they are similar, but with a different syntax. So in that case, we have a JSON here with locations, and we say, in the locations array, find the ones with the matching state, pick the name field, then sort the whole thing alphabetically, and then give me back a JSON where we have an entry for Washington cities and join all the results as text with comma separated, which gives you a result like this. So I have a test project for this, where we can just run such a query. Let's take another one here. We have a search for people above the age of 20 and return us the name and the age. So you can, in this case, as a list, as an array. So we have a JSON array for the result. Each result is the search, the item we found, but only the fields we specified here, name and you can run various queries against your JSONs, and it can help you parse JSONs, especially if you have more complex ones, like a JSON for an invoice where you have maybe several line items, and then you may have address data, and you may want to pick something from the JSON. So you can pick, you can find here any node named book, and then pick the second one. So, or you can again look for Evelyn, and or for example here look for a book entry which has a certain field, and then pick the title. So it finds all the entries with an ISBN number here. And you have to imagine where you could use this. Maybe you have some JSON from API, from the data API or so, where you could use that. Any questions about that?
Looks pretty self-explanatory, and you've explained it well. It looks it's really interesting. Really good, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Very useful.
So this picks a range of entries from an array and merge them. So let's pick the first two and the last three and merge it. Or here, let's say we take the title of the first book, the second book, and the fourth book, and then we get a list of strings. Find the book where the price is above 10. We have here price. You can run as many queries as you like, and or just here list the keys in the JSON. So, and if you yeah.
Are those array? Is that zero based?
Zero based, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So we also have the replace function, which goes a step forward, because if you have a search result and you picked a field in the search result, you can put in a new value. So if I take this JSON here and say, find the price of this item. Or I can just, the result is missing. So let's go to the data viewer and try it here. Pop it in, evaluate, and we see we get the same JSON back, and one of the fields here got a new price. Or I could just remove the condition here and no, I broke it. Makes the condition something different, and then I could change several of the JSON records. Okay, so that's JSON improvements. Then we got functions for a list box where you can now have checkboxes. So let me just open a standard example here for a list box where you don't see checkboxes because there's a new function to define whether you want the checkboxes or not. So let me just copy this into the script, run it again, and now we have a list of checkboxes. The good thing here is you can just search for something like so you can search for one, and then if you remove your search, the checkboxes are still checked. So you can make several searches to find all the items you need in the list, and then check for each of them, and then when you return, you can program it in a script. You can query which checkboxes are checked. So let's see, list dialog get checked titles. So we get the list of the items we checked. You can, of course, ask for every item, is it checked? You can set the checkbox before to be checked. Yeah. And it can be very useful, especially if you need a dialog to just pick something from a list and get back the ID. So some people like that for having the user pick something without having a relationship defined, and then fill the list box with some SQL queries. So while we are here in the script, let me show you another feature we have. We got a new script. So let's say I start with a function header, and my script maybe do a loop. And let's make the script a little bit longer and say another loop. So now we have a little bit longer script. And as you may know, comments on the beginning cost performance, because executing a script step in FileMaker costs time, even if it's a comment. FileMaker just needs a little time to pick the next step and then decide it's a command and then do nothing and then go to the next step. So we tend to move a lot of comments to the bottom of the script. So we may have here on the bottom something like this script is a test, and then we have an author, and we have a history. So here, you know, probably version 1 and then version 2, and someone changed it, and we write comments in the scripts a lot. Because in 6 months, you don't know what you were thinking. So, and the thing is, we don't like to have a lot of comments on the top. So I came up with this idea to have a link to the bottom. So I say here, go to end. And then the plugin recognizes the link. And I can just click on it and jump to the bottom of the script. And I can, of course, also just put any links I like into the script and make them clickable. So I can say here, see, so I can link to a documentation page, Wikipedia page, and the link in the script is clickable right away. So whenever you come to this script and you like to know why we do something or where the documentation is, you can put the links in the script. That, of course, also works for other things, like you could have an FMP URL somewhere where you would say, see the other database. And yeah, and if you like to go back to the top, we can have go to, I think start was it? So yeah, so we can jump to this. Was it start? Yeah, okay, start. So originally the feature started with something like put in a line number. That was the original idea. So you can just jump to a line by clicking on the go to link, and so people could make a little table of contents of a longer script. So you could say the script has 3 parts, and you can directly jump to one of the parts by putting in a line number. And then we came to the idea we may want to also refer to other scripts. So for more C script run. And then the plugin would recognize that, and you could directly jump to the script. Yeah. So if you want to use that, you would install the new plugin, and then you could just use this go to URLs, script URLs. And of course, put links to documentation, to email address, to FMP URLs into your comments. Any questions about that? Don't forget to unmute.
Yeah, sorry, Christian. Can you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is great. I think there's some nice things that we can do. I like that you could hop in between scripts. I think you posted this on FMSoup, and I submitted an idea to extend the concept further with some anchors or things like that we could drop in the script that would not be dependent on a line number. But already, to me, there's a great deal of value in what I see on the screen as it is. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the first version of this feature. So there can be more based on the feedback, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me show something else we have in store. So you got your calculation dialog. You probably enjoy already that we make colors. We have things like autocomplete, and we have a syntax check here. Oh yeah, the $sign doesn't. So syntax check. And we got a format function here. So now I need a bigger calculation. Let's say I just type some let so simple as it can be. And I can use the format button to format it a little bit. I started this to, well, do some things. And we will see if people like it or don't like it. But and I might certainly tune this how we format it for the next version. So I already see there is a space here and no space here. But it may be a start, and I'm curious to see if you find edge cases. I already have a few things I may do better or may improve. Already we have something like here you can see, yeah. So we have different parameters here, and if you have a lot of parameters, it would wrap to the next line. Let's just write me here some longer text. So changes differently. How much do I need to type here? Oh, nothing happens. So we have a maximum line width we would like. So because we have too many parameters here, it maps them to the new line. Well, this is one of the things where you have to, I think, fine-tune it a little bit more. So I'm interested to see how people like it, how they use it, and yeah. If
I
you
can
maybe
certainly see myself using that one because I spend a lot of time formatting my functions, and that would be very useful.
yeah,
Even
just if you
not
add
quite
something
the way I
here,
do it
that
at the
will-
moment. It's worth it's worth it.
This is very nice, Christian. I'm sure you will be getting a ton of feedback because there's a lot of people who have their own specific ways of formatting things, but I would expect it to be challenging. So as much as I see people throwing in their feedback, but in terms of readability, I think everything that can be closer to the product for people to get something that that gets us closer to what we see on screen, I think is very very good for the community as a whole.
So I already got feature requests to not use tabs here. So we may get
I
a
like the
switch.
tabs, Christian. I'm a fan of the tabs there.
Yeah, I prefer tabs, but I got, and
Oh,
probably sooner or
not a
later someone
spaces
will
or tabs holy war.
someone will complain about the semicolons to move to the left.
I'm sure that there's lots of different varieties, but just the mere fact of having that at the press of a button is such a time saver that I can take some compromise on the formatting.
So, and of course you can here test your thing. So you can test your calculation if you like. This date value, yeah, sure. So let's and for testing, I always can remind you that you can define variables. What is it? Is it here? Let me see. No, that was for a custom function, wasn't it? No, that's for custom functions. So in a custom function, you can define a variable if you use it. So $count as 1. No, the parameter. That was it. So we may have a parameter here. Count down. So you may have a parameter, you may have your custom functions, say it returns counter, and then you can here check it, you can format it, you can execute it, and because you defined here the comment with the test case, the plugin can use it. It can of course also use something like get current, what is it, layout or so, and active layout.
I think it's just get layout name.
That's so much. Sometimes I come up with, feels like I'm a bot. So, okay. Questions also. Then we have a couple of functions here for reaction effects on macOS Sonoma and iOS 17. You may have seen them if you make a gesture on your camera while you are recording. It may show some effects. You can actually do this effects with a plugin now if you use our AV recorder functions, and you can list the available effects. Where's it? Here. So available reaction types. So you can have balloons, fireworks, thumbs up, rain, lasers. You can have them all if you like in FileMaker, or usually you may want to not have them if you just make a recording. And since I don't have Sonoma installed here on this machine, I can just show it to you. Then if you're coding with files, you may sometimes run into the problem that you may want to know if a file or folder on Mac is a package. So you may know that applications on macOS or frameworks are actually folders, which look like a file because the Finder knows that this file extension should be handled as a package, and you can query this flag with the plugin now. So if you ask the plugin if the app is a package, it will return 1. This can be interesting sometimes for if you list files to know whether you should show it as a folder or not. Yeah. Some user asked for it, so I got it. So let's see. Then for Windows, we got a function to add a window to the taskbar, or more likely to remove from the taskbar. So on Windows, you may have the problem that you have several FileMaker windows open, and they all show up in the taskbar as items. And some people complain that if they want to have 2 windows open, but they only want 1 in the taskbar, and if they use Alt-Tab to switch between windows, they just want the 1 window. So I got that. And also I improved on the XML import, so you can now define your own custom fields for all the new tables we create for you. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh yeah, a few more little additions here. The regular expression replace function can now replace something at a certain offset. So you can say replace the first font match or the second font match or fourth font match. So, and the matrix HTML got a new flag here for excluding the HTML editor. So whenever someone asks me, could you please make me an option to do something differently, I usually can do that because it doesn't hurt anyone. That's how we get 7,200 functions, by just adding new things. Another thing we can do is DynaPDF got new features for PDFA4. So PDFA has different versions. And when you do our check conformance test, you can specify the PDF version. And new in this version here is that you can specify PDFA4 for E or for F. So if you have a customer who wants all the PDFs as PDFA4, you can say, yes, I can do that in FileMaker by using the MBS plugin to convert the PDF to PDFA4, which basically means it will repair a few things and maybe complain if you have something in your PDF that doesn't work. So I recently got a blog post about PDF4, about why you may want to do PDFA, and then, yeah. So basically, whether you want version 1, 2, 3, or 4, we have them all. So, it's more like a thing that a customer needs PDFs as PDFA, and so we offer the conversion. Any other questions about maybe about plugin or anything you would like to see?
I find it hard to keep up with your new plugin, your new features, Christian. Let alone ask for new ones. I think this is a great, some great additions in here, definitely.
I was curious, Christian, about regex, but not in how the plugin lets us use them, but how the plugin may be using them itself. Like, for instance, when the plugin is scanning, say, a script to know what the existing variables are, is it leveraging regex to achieve that?
No, currently not.
Okay.
It's more like it's a little C function which walks over the lines, and then we look for lines with certain structures like set variable on the beginning, or it's one of those insert lines. So we have a list of script steps that define variables, and then we look for those and then pick the first dollar named variable to find the list of variables. Like I can just go in this. I may also say you can define for the plugin variables here by typing something like here $ABC, $CDE. It can also be parameter, so we have different names you can have, P1 or whatever. So, or constant, also popular. And those can also be written short, so you can just write bar or param or const. You can also now have them in front of here your calculation. So you could say, this is a calculation which defines a new parameter, let's say phone. At var phone. Oops. This should not be a, this should be a calculation. So let's say there's a let statement maybe behind, and that defines phone. 1, 2, 3, dollar phone. Yeah, you just notice it picked it up here right away. So I just defined phone, so we autocomplete phone with a new calculation.
Nice.
So and now you see when the plugin parses the script lines here, we don't get the new lines. So I see there's a comment starting var phone, and then something else. I don't see that there's a line break here.
I see.
So that makes parsing everything behind it very difficult. But for the beginning, we can say, okay, we saw here's dollar phone defined. So when we go in the next line and say this is dollar phone, it doesn't work. No.
But you need to save the script, I think, for it to.
No, I saved it. That's a good question now. What is going on? Oh, no, wow.
And I didn't know you could use the comma separator when you're calling them. So that's nice.
Yeah, but with a space. Here with a space. I have to figure out why the phone is not catched here. So let's see, dollar here. Did I save it? Cache it. ABC. So let's see, copy variables. Which one did I get? So this is a list. So I made this copy command here to get the list. So and so jump line. So why doesn't it pick up the phone? I don't know. I will have to figure out. Yeah, but otherwise, if you type here dollar, it's still there is a cache. So
yeah, but the autocomplete is very precious. I couldn't go one day without it anymore.
I'm with you there, Robert. It's very useful.
Okay. Okay, do we have any other question? So I just look for. Why is it type it? Right. I have to check.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a caching issue because it looked like when I said you need to save it, it looked like it didn't register the save or something like that. So I can't explain it, but
Yeah, it's something.
And now it's gone.
No, it's good. So we have a cache that we don't scan all the time because it makes it slower. So basically, because I just closed it and opened it again, cache was invalidated.
Mhm.
So
Awesome.
this still doesn't. Did I define it somewhere else? Okay. No, it's back. Okay. Any other questions or anything else I can show you?
No one wants to request live functions, just as a, I mean, just as a straw poll. Do most people use Monkey Bread plugin, and why wouldn't you? No one's brave enough to step up and admit it. There's some great features in there, Christian, and it's always good to see new ones coming. And I think there's some really interesting stuff in there, and certainly some things that I'll be using.
Okay.
So thank you very much for that.
Welcome.
We have a bit of time left now. Has anyone got anything they'd like to talk about to bring to the table? Some issue? Doug, have you got anything new for us? You always have something new going on.
I have nothing for this week. Maybe next week in Belgium. New stuff. But yeah, for this week, no, it's just I wouldn't say normal day at the office, but yeah, we're trying to get the new stuff running.
Ah, good.
Girls, I've got something old, seeing as I'm so far behind everybody on this webinar. On if I'm trying to run a server, do I still need an IP number?
Ian, I owe you an apology because I said I'd ask that question and I didn't. So I'm glad you've asked it.
How do you mean an IP address? Well, you have an IP address locally. Do you mean external IP address or internal IP address?
Yeah, if I don't have a static IP address, can I run a server?
Right. Use.
You can, because it's always going to have a IP address, whether it's static or given by the HTTP server. So if you have if you're running so the way it's going to work basically is either you have the IP address and it's static and you give it to everyone in the company, or the other thing is basically is when you install FileMaker server on a Mac Windows, you have the Bonjour services that actually send information out to the clients, so they can actually use that to actually get people to connect.
So you don't need a static IP address anymore.
Well, you never did, but
yeah, you
the only
did.
thing it's easier to actually have a static IP address, because that way you could actually give it to other users to actually connect to.
I think you may distinguish between a static IP in a local net and a static IP on the internet.
Yeah.
So usually you would go for the local network, you would define a DNS name. So your DNS resolver locally would respond with whatever the IP is currently. And the same is for the internet connection, where you would have a dynamic IP service, which would resolve whatever domain name you have to whatever IP you currently have.
Right. So you can, because it's a long time ago when I was playing with it, you always had to have a static IP address to run a FileMaker server. Are we now saying externally on the internet, I can run with a dynamic name to get back to the server? Because it always had to be an external IP number.
Well, I think you can use a service like DNS to route you. So you're going to have that domain name that you can use, and then DNS will then point whatever is asking it the correct IP at the time.
Is there no issues with SSL certificates using a DNS, a dynamic DNS server?
So if you have an SSL certificate, that SSL certificate is linked to a domain name. So your dynamic DNS servers that you have, either they can offer you an SSL certificate that actually goes with your IP address. Otherwise, you actually have to buy your own SSL certificate that actually goes with your domain name. But its systems is basically is your IP address from your internal FileMaker server internally has an IP address, whether it's dynamic or static. It's slugging back to a router, and then the router has the IP address of the internet, and then that IP address you can give it out to sort of anyone else, or you can actually reroute your traffic from whatever DNS system you use back to the IP address, and then you get the port forwarding with your router.
Right. So which is the better option? Still to have a static external IP address?
Well, your better way is to actually have an external the server running on a data center anywhere in the UK that has a static IP address, and then you have a DNS. If you need a DNS name with it, domain name, you assign it to the IP address, and then you'll.
Yeah, I want to run my own. I don't want to be sharing somebody else's cloud or anything like that. And I've always struggled with the broadband provider that I have. They claim that they know how to run an IP number, but over time it's demonstrated that they don't know how to run a static IP number, or a block of them anyway. So that was the reason why I was asking if you're happy that it all runs dynamic now, as I appreciate that you can put a dynamic, you can have whatever you want to call it, thread at such and such, and then that'll be dynamic to an IP number that automatically keeps changing, so the name is correct.
So legally, the IP address going to your house or your office shouldn't be changing, because if you have a subscription with a provider, the IP address to your router shouldn't be changing.
Yeah, it shouldn't be changing. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, if it's a static IP, yeah.
But every customer now is given an IP address, a static IP address that goes to your office or your house or whatever. That's legal requirement.
Has that changed recently, Doug? That never used to be the case, because broadband providers would give you a variety of IP addresses over the year.
It's been at least, I mean, I know at least for the French market and based on European laws, that's been like for 5-6 years. I think it's been like this.
In America, we have a static IP. I live in America. We have a static IP that usually lasts for like a year. Every now and then we get a new one. So technically it's dynamic. There may be like part of the GD, part of the European rules to try and make, if you're dynamic, you can be, semi-anonymous, not really anonymous, but in Europe, maybe they want to make people, track and traceable.
Well,
who's your provider in the UK?
We're being recorded.
You are being recorded. I can turn this off if we want to.
If it's okay. When I was with EE,
hold that question for
as a
about
provider, they were
5 minutes.
They were pretty dreadful at keeping my address changed on a pretty regular basis, and they're doing a bunch of somewhat odd things with IPv6 routing that they denied until I spoke to someone in their second level support, who basically kind of more or less did concede that yes, they were doing some things, but when I changed from them, things got a lot better.
I can add that here in Germany, you get changing IP address every 5 days or so.
Yeah.
Every few days. If you pay more, you can have the static IP. But that's a monthly fee, which is added on top. And so most people don't do that. And also there's another thing that if we are now getting our new connection, it will not be reachable from outside. So we can connect to the internet and access service. You can't connect to me because we are behind some firewall with all the customers.
But there are
except you opt out of that.
There are some services like ngrock.com who they deliver kind of a managed ingress service, but I don't know how that would work with your unique domain name for the purposes of a FileMaker SSL certificate. But I'll put the link to them in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I've been paying money for a block of IP numbers. When we come out into the virtual bar, I'll explain who it is. But moving forward, I've had enough of them. And I don't know if Tony's still around. I did ask him a question, which I don't think, seeing as he had Elon Musk on his database, I am thinking of going Starlink. And Starlink offer static IP address, so that would fix my problem with the FileMaker file server, so that I could publish my own file server. And I'm still waiting. That's quite an expensive route, unfortunately, and it's quite slow. Even though that he's local orbit, as it were, the speed that we've got is quite, or can get, is quite slow. And also, if anybody has used Starlink, I don't know if I'm just talking. Has anybody come across Starlink yet? But they only use they're on their Wi-Fi. Not that I'd be too interested in the Wi-Fi, but what I'm worried about on Starlink is that there's no support or anything to suggest that whatever you put behind the router of Starlink, that your router will then work, because it needs to adjust where the satellite projects itself up into the sky. So I'm a bit nervous about going down that route. But I've still got another 2 years before another service comes here, which is Tube. I don't know if anybody's had any experience with them at all. TOB, Tube.
No, whereabouts in the UK are you?
I'm in a place called Churchbrook and Fleet. Well, the place that you'll probably know is Aldershot, home of the British Army.
Okay.
Tube are coming up from Southampton. I don't know how they managed it, but Tube managed to get a rural grant from government to put proper optical cable in. They've got a major shareholding by SSE, so they're allowing them to use all of their conduits to come up railway lines and stuff like that. They come straight up from Southampton to Farnborough. They are digging holes all over the place in Farnborough, and they claim that they're going to be here within 2 years, which is interesting because I saw their first hole up in the high street. You can't miss them because they're pink. It's their as the thing, but they're good, or what they're claiming is good, because it's 900 megabits up and down.
Yeah, we're on. I mean, I'm in central London, but we've got we've got optical fiber, and we're getting a gigabit both up and down.
Yeah,
like, I mean, exactly what they promised.
Yeah,
it's really, really good.
Yeah, well, I think in London you've got quite a choice now, because I think you've got people like Swish Fibre and quite a lot of companies, because obviously they're running through the ducts of OpenReach. OpenReach had no choice, apparently. But out here we're still sort of stuck, and I'm stuck with the companies that I've got, because BT can't offer any speed, and although I've got lines, well, I actually had 3 lines here, which was really, really good, because if anything went wrong on one of the lines, but I was still learning that I was having problems with the IP numbers. Then SSE very kindly, the electricity cable blew up, and then they took a lamppost away. Then they then come back and put the lamppost back in, but then took out all 3 of my broadband cables.
I think at this point I'm gonna just stop the recording, just because I don't think we need to record anymore. Is that okay with everybody? No one objects?
I may add that I fixed the bug.
Oh, well done, Christian.
So
what was it?
I can try tomorrow. It was a little thing. You can start your comment with 2 slashes or with a slash and a star.
Ah.
And while adding the slash with a star, I made a little typo, and sadly I didn't notice it yesterday. So, but it's good that we test together.
Yeah. Before I stop the recording, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who presented. Thank you for giving your time and sharing everything. It's been a pleasure having everybody here, seeing you all. I see many of you in Engage You. Look forward to that. And local chaps will get together soon. And I hope to see you all soon otherwise. But we can carry on now. I'm just going to stop the recording. We're going to the virtual bar.